This is KPRN-DB, broadcasting worldwide from Southeast Oklahoma, USA to parts unknown.
Hey preppers, James Smith here. I've got a new advertiser to tell you about. It is ultimatepreppers.net. There's a couple brothers out of the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area that have this website. It's chock full of everything you need and at a decent price. Let me tell you, they've got a Mayday fanny pack kit for less than $30, a Guide 10 Plus Adventure kit for solar power, 5-man tent for $89, tomahawks, GPS, go bags, so much more. Take a look at it. Freeze-dried food, supplies, you wouldn't believe it. Now, they also sell guns online, and they also have military surplus items. Now, new items are being added daily. If you order more than $100, items are shipped free. Now, they also do take PayPal, so take a look at it. It's ultimatepreppers.net. That's ultimatepreppers, that's plural, .net.
Don't get caught with your pantry down. Try the most delicious Just Add Water storable food from Go Foods. No GMOs, no preservatives, no trans fats, no hydrogenated oils, and a 25-year shelf life. Enjoy it today and save money. Share it with others and earn money. Store it for the future and invest your money. You can't find better food for less anywhere. Made in the USA and guaranteed 100%. Plus, try it for free and decide for yourself at www.lovegofoods.com. To try it for free, go to www.lovegofoods.com. That's www.lovegofoods.com.
Feeling like there are too many pressures and demands on you? Losing sleep worrying about tests and schoolwork? Eating on the run because your schedule is just too busy? You may be under too much stress, and it may be affecting your mind. Get your mental edge back with Nootropic Mind Power from mindregard.com. Nootropic Mind Power is not a drug, but a natural supplement. Its 12 powerful ingredients are natural and non-GMO, plus it's gluten-free, wheat-free, and formulated by Americans for Americans by an NSF-certified laboratory. Nootropic Mind Power is available at mindregard.com, spelled MINDREGARD.com, and comes with a 100% money-back guarantee. Free your mind with Nootropic Mind Power Cognitive Supplement from mindregard.com. MindRegard. Clearly see tomorrow and yesterday. Today.
Are you storing food? Many preppers are storing food for months and years, but only have enough fuel stored for days or weeks. Stretch your fuel storage by harnessing the power of the sun with a sun oven. Food can be baked, boiled, or steamed at temperatures of 360 to 400 degrees Fahrenheit with the power of the sun. Depending on where you are located, you can use the sun for 50 to 80% of your cooking, allowing you to preserve your fuel storage for rainy days. Sun-baked foods stay moister and have less shrinkage and don't burn. Sun-baked roasts are tastier and more succulent, and sun-baked bread has unparalleled taste and texture. Water can be heated in a sun oven for purification or personal hygiene. For the past 25 years, sun ovens have been proudly made in the U.S. They are durable, have a long life, and come with a 100% satisfaction guarantee. For a discount coupon, email podcast@sunoven.com. That's podcast@sunoven.com.
The truth is out there. Knowledge is power. This is the Prepper Podcast Radio Network.
Charlie McGrath here with an important message from Chris, Phil, Russ, Tyler, and the folks at PrepareWise.com. Do not wait until it's too late to be prepared for a disaster. The world's a crazy place. We have the ever-present threat of man-made political and economic crisis, making it important to be prepared. But when you factor in natural disasters, it goes from important to mandatory. A 7.7 earthquake in Canada, a 6.5 earthquake in Central America, and over 50 million Americans affected by Hurricane Sandy. It's time to make Legacy Premium freeze-dried storable food part of your preparedness plan. Legacy Premium tastes great, has a 25-year shelf life, and is the only certified non-GMO freeze-dried storable food in the business. I really recommend the 360-serving package. That's 120 days worth of life-sustaining calories for about $1.25 per serving. Give the guys over at PrepareWise a call at 888-545-6265. Again, 888-545-6265. Or better yet, visit them online at preparewise.com.
No one knows what the future holds, whether an unexpected natural disaster or a catastrophe of a more personal nature. You never know when you're going to need to call upon your survival skills and supplies. In order to be fully prepared, we at Dan's Depot believe you need two things in order to get through these uncertain times without fear: proven gear and top-notch survival training. DansDepot.com is not just another storefront selling survival gear. Our staff has been studying, practicing, and teaching survival skills for over 4 decades. We use and abuse all the gear we sell. So, when we recommend survival products, you can be assured that it's the highest quality gear available at the best price. But having the best gear means nothing if you don't know how to use it. That's why we have on-site video instructions to help you choose survival products for any situation. Each week, we produce new training videos and articles that inform, challenge, and better prepare you in all areas of survival, first aid, and self-reliance. Come visit us at dansdepot.com and let our team of survival experts help you get prepared with the knowledge and equipment you need to face these uncertain times with confidence. That's DANSDEPOT.com.
Hey everybody, welcome to Survival and Beyond, and I'm your host, Ed Corcoran, here once again this week on Natural News Radio and the Prepper Podcast Radio Network. And it's good to be here. It's good to, once again this week, I had a pretty good week, actually. Kind of, getting my equilibrium back, and after the holidays and, and that horrific shooting in Connecticut, that really just knocked me off my orbit. It just scrambled my brain waves and emotionally. I talked about this last week on the show, and it, starting to recover from that now. And it was some seriously bad vibrations, some that just it was hard to deal with, honestly. And that's why That's why I take umbrage to all of the people out there who have the knee-jerk reaction towards anybody who mentions anything about gun rights or points out that there's some stuff about the official story that doesn't quite add up. That they're automatically monsters because they're being insensitive to the victims and their families and everything by even talking about it. And I don't think there's anybody who wasn't devastated by that event. And to say that you're insensitive because you're also concerned that what it means for our rights and that that makes you a monster. It's like no, we have to be grown-ups about this. Okay, calling somebody insensitive or the heartless because they're concerned about liberty. When what this event means to our liberty, potentially, it's kind of like, calling anybody who criticizes Obama a racist. It's just a knee-jerk reaction. And, like I mentioned before, I was utterly gutted by that and really just, I don't even know how to describe it. It was very similar to the feeling after 9/11. Not on the same scale, but it was that same kind of low, dense vibration. The same feeling that I felt after the Trade Center attacks, and it took a while to shake it off. It took me a while to get back, back on a even ground, emotionally. But these things do have to be discussed, and it's you can't ignore it. I can't ignore it. I can't not talk about it. I can't talk about it. It's become what I refer to as the national argument. It's not the national conversation. It's a national argument. In regards to gun rights, and then you've got Dianne Feinstein, who's got over 200 guns that she wants to have banned, and this whole ludicrous assertion that there's a lot in all of these arguments. I guess this is the point I'm getting to. In all of these debates and things that I've read or heard, I did catch a part of that interview, and calling it an interview is kind of gracious. The interview with Alex Jones on Piers Morgan, on the Piers Morgan show. And I didn't get to that in a second, but it is a national argument, and just the fact that people think that it's about hunting or it's about recreation and sporting activities, and you don't need an automatic rifle to go hunting. It's like, no, you don't. You really don't, and that would be my answer to anybody. If anybody ever said that to me, if anybody ever, I would say you're absolutely right. You don't. That's not what an AK-47 is for. That's not what an AR-15 is for. It is not for hunting. It is for your protection. And they don't get it. What is this? Well, I know what it is. It's the mass conditioning and brainwashing of the American populace to believe that somehow if guns were illegal, then there would be no more gun crime, and they would just disappear, just like all the drugs disappeared from the streets when the war on drugs came rolling into town. Yep, our streets are free of drugs because they made them illegal. It's ludicrous, but getting to this, I don't want to belabor. I'm starting to belabor the obvious, and I'm starting to preach to the choir. So, I want to give you my take on that so-called interview. And Alex Jones, it was pretty predictable. Alex Jones came and he did what Alex Jones does, and and hollered and kicked up a fuss and shouted down Piers Morgan on several occasions. But what was so asinine about that? And first of all, I have absolutely no respect for Piers Morgan. I think he's a twit. And I'm being polite because this is family radio, and just the pomposity. I mean, that is so British, isn't it? I mean, he's been shooting his mouth off. No pun intended. Boy, I really didn't intend a pun there. Shooting his mouth off about how guns in America should be illegal and blah 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 and everything like that. It's like, well, first of all, shut up. You're not from here, okay? I mean, I'm not saying that he's not entitled to his opinion. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. But to go on this just pedantic crusade in regards to disarming the American public and using his show as a platform for his own personal opinion, which is obviously, has nothing to do with facts or the real world, it is just, it's infuriating that, someone who's not, you're not an American, you can have an opinion, but you don't really have a say in the matter, okay? So, you don't like it, go back home. Where you have no guns, and England has already given itself up to the New World Order. I mean, they've already rolled over. This is why it's ludicrous. I am so sick to death of the constant analogies or the constant comparisons of the United States and Great Britain in regards to gun laws and the rate of gun-related violence and deaths and whatnot. You can't. It's apples and oranges. You can't compare it. We have a unique gun culture in America, and there's a reason for that. It's because of our history. The British do not have that same sense of, I don't know what to call it. They don't feel that they don't really see the guns and being able to protect yourself as necessary. Because they didn't have a Revolutionary War. They didn't have to fight for their freedom. They didn't have to, firearms are just much more integral to American life from the dawn of our history, from the very beginning. Since the first settlers came here from England, escaping persecution and seeking freedom. And so that's really just entwined in our DNA as a culture. And also there's the reality that you need to protect yourself. You can't rely on the police to be there. Like they say, when seconds count, the police are only minutes away. And if that. So to superimpose American culture in regards to guns over Great Britain is ineffective at best, and absolutely ludicrous at worst. You just can't you can't compare the two. The discussions that ought to be taking place, what people should be talking about, what I'm surprised Alex Jones didn't mention. Or maybe he did. I don't know. I only saw 7 minutes of the interview, so he might have mentioned. But these are the things that need to be discussed instead of arguing pointless, points of minutia and statistics, comparing us to another country that has nothing to do with us. What we should be talking about is like when the question is asked, why in the world would an American citizen need to have a quote unquote assault rifle? The answer to that question would be because we live in a country where we're under surveillance 24/7, where our government doesn't need to get a warrant to listen to our landline, our cell phone, read our email, and store it all for future scrutiny or for future analysis, which is what the installation out in Utah with the 1 yottabyte drives, or 1 yottabyte of storage. I'm sure there's several drives. That's what that is for. We are in a surveillance state. There's a reason. We have 300,000, or there's going to be 300,000 drones flying all over America, across the skies of America. And they say that they're just for surveillance. We live in a surveillance state. Our freedoms are being systematically and incrementally taken away from us little by little. Our government has purchased 1.6 billion rounds of ammunition, largely hollow point, and the American public believes that it's for target practice. There's another good reason. Oh, yeah, let's not forget NDAA. We live in a country now where the Constitution is null and void, where our rights to a speedy trial and to face our accusers and to be charged with a crime, that protection is no longer in effect. American citizens can be detained for no reason whatsoever, indefinitely, no legal recourse, no access to counsel, no jury, no trial. And the Constitution, the Second Amendment, wasn't written for hunting and for skeet shooting and for sports and recreation, so that people guaranteeing the rights that we can recreate with firearms. That's not what the Second Amendment is about. The Second Amendment is to defend ourselves. We live in a country where the government is getting more and more tyrannical with with every passing day. You know, none of this is speculation. None of this is conspiratorial, or none of it is a theory. None of it's theoretical. This is all information that you can look up, that you can find out for yourself. They're not trying to hide it. You know, the powers that be, the New World Order, they're not afraid of us because they know that most of us are still asleep and not pose too much of a threat. So that's why there's a Second Amendment. That's why Americans should own firearms equivalent to what the government has. You know, that's what the founding fathers intended. You know, that they fought a war. They fought the most powerful force on the planet at the time, the most powerful nation on earth, with the same level of firearms that their army was that the British Army was using to fight off tyranny. You know. So those are the answers that should be given to those questions when you see what's going on with the police state that's forming around us. And you know, another thing that people don't generally mention, and there's been some criticism towards conservatives, groups and individuals who are outspoken about the gun issue, about the Second Amendment issue, and the one big disconnect. Let me see. I'm trying to figure out how I want to phrase this. The one big disconnect that there is the lack of realization. It seems like everybody, those who are like staunchly supporting the Second Amendment, typically only staunchly support the Second Amendment, meaning that a lot of these conservative groups, these Republican groups and individuals that I won't mention by name, I didn't compile a list or anything like that, but they're pro-gun, but they're just fine with things like the drones and NDAA and the Patriot Act and warrantless wiretaps and surveillance. Nobody ever speaks up about the other amendments, you know. And this is the reminder. This is the big thing that I actually made a note to myself to make sure I mention this, is that the Second Amendment is our last resort, because we already have other amendments in the Bill of Rights that should prevent the necessity of the Second Amendment. Now, the Second Amendment is definitely necessary, but, you know, the Sixth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment, you know, the right to speedy and public trial, the right to counsel, the right to be informed of your charges, the right to face your accuser, the Sixth Amendment, that's nullified by NDAA, right? This is what we combat. This is what we're supposed to be combating tyranny with. These other amendments, our Fifth Amendment, our right to due process, our right to indict, having to be indicted by a grand jury. You know, the Fourth Amendment that protects search and seizure, protect us from unreasonable search and seizure. You know, under the Fourth Amendment, all this wiretapping and all this surveillance and reading your emails and going through your information and data mining and storing this information for further scrutiny and analysis to figure out if you're a terrorist or not, you know, because who knows what reason, you know, that's a violation of the Fourth Amendment. Nobody's saying anything about these things. Well, I mean, people like myself and others in the Liberty and the Patriot movement, but there's none of this, you know, talking that it's always, these things are not these are not hot button issues, and they should be, in the forefront of everybody's mind, because they're being violated indiscriminately, and nobody's really doing anything about it. And these are the things that lead up to tyranny. When these amendments start getting steamrolled over, then that requires us to be armed to protect ourselves from the usurpation of our rights. Or the revocation of the Bill of Rights. So that's a dialogue that needs to be happening. And if you must draw comparisons, for God's sake, at least draw comparisons that make sense. instead of trying to compare the United States to Great Britain, why don't you try comparing states that have relatively loose gun laws and their rates and statistics of gun-related violence and death, like New Hampshire, like my home state, where there's practically no gun laws. There's the only thing you need to get a license for is concealed carry. Right, it's an open carry state. You don't need to. There's no waiting periods. There's no, anything like that. You want to buy a firearm, then you go down to a firearms dealer. You give them money. They give you a gun. And private sales, you don't require any kind of registration. There's no kind of paperwork that needs to be filed if you buy from a private party. And the death rate, New Hampshire is consistently always at the bottom of the list of states in regards to the number of firearm-related violence and death, right along with Vermont. Vermont has no gun laws whatsoever. You don't even need a license for concealed carry. There's no registration. The same deal, and they're always, if not lower than New Hampshire, they're neck and neck. Other states like Georgia. Why don't we talk about those things? Why don't we bring those up, to counter the argument? And if you need to make a comparison somewhere else in the world to another country, there's Switzerland. Switzerland, gun ownership is practically obligatory. It's almost mandatory. Their rate of gun ownership. Oh, and by the way, before I forget, these statistics as well. It's been systematically shown that in states who have looser or more relaxed gun laws have a lower rate of crime and gun-related crime and violence, and this is per capita. Because I know some of you probably think, well, New Hampshire, Vermont, those are small states, and this is per capita, it's per 100,000 people. Try comparing these states to other states, or in Washington D.C., for crying out sakes, that just by an order of magnitude have, I don't know what the percentage is, but I mean, I saw the chart comparing all of the and it was a horizontal bar chart, and the Washington D.C. went all the way across the screen, just an enormous, and it's not even a state. And there's an enormously greater amount of gun-related violence and death in Washington, D.C., and in states like Michigan, Detroit. All of these areas that have restrictive gun laws have a higher rate of violent and gun-related crime. The evidence is incontrovertible. That in itself, and like I was starting to say earlier, countries like Switzerland, where you practically, it's practically mandatory to own a gun. Everybody has to do a term in the military, and people are trained, and they're well trained, and they're well comfortable with firearms, and again, a much greater reduced rate in gun-related crime. I mean, there's a reason why the Japanese would not attack the mainland, attack mainland America. The emperor said, "You cannot, you cannot invade America. You will find a gun behind every blade of grass," and that's why we need firearms. I don't know how much more, how much more succinctly or how much more to the point I can make it. On the other hand, though, I remain incredibly optimistic. Well, maybe not incredibly optimistic, but I remain optimistic. I really, there's knee-jerk reactionary, or there's knee-jerk reactions going on both sides of the, of the issue as well. I think the likelihood that there would be any kind of gun confiscation going on anytime soon is pretty remote. The first step that would have to be taken, I think, what would probably happen first is that there would be an attempt to get everybody to register their firearms, and that ain't going to happen. There's no way that the gun owners of America, that the majority of them are going to roll over and go ahead and register their guns. It's estimated that of the over 3 million firearms in this country, that about 10% of them are registered. Or no, I'm sorry, I think it's 30%. 30% are registered in one way or another, but the rest of them are not, and for good reason. I mean, many states do not require registration of firearms, and then there's private sales and secondhand sales, and even if you bought your gun at a federally licensed dealer, or like at a gun show or a gun shop, that doesn't even really count as registration. I mean, that's just a background check to make sure that you're not a felon, or you have any history of domestic violence on your record, and that doesn't. It's not really that data is hard to use for any kind of registration purposes, or for several different reasons, which I'm not going to go into because we're running short on time. But the other thing too is I have a lot of contacts with military intelligence, and they all say the same thing. There's, as far as like outright confiscating, like going door to door and taking people's guns away, there's no way that can be executed. And actually, James Rawls wrote a very interesting article, which I have republished on survivalandbeyond.net, and it echoes what my contacts and my acquaintances in military intelligence have been telling me. It's similar to a martial law scenario, and the manpower just doesn't exist. So, there's something like 800,000 law officers, police officers, law enforcement officers, I should say, in the United States. The way Rawls put it was like, even if we can get every single police officer, every sheriff's deputy, every dog catcher, every meter maid, and most of our military are off fighting wars all over the world. Maybe if they got foreign troops to come in, but even then it's doubtful, and people are going to be highly resistant to it, and it's not. I don't think it's something that the powers that be are ready to foment right now. That I don't think that's really their game plan. And also, don't forget that many of our law enforcement officers, certainly our sheriffs, our military, many of them are oath keepers, and they're not going to be too happy, and they're not going to be too cooperative about enforcing an unconstitutional law or action. So, and that's not to say that there's no danger of it ever happening. It's still something that requires our vigilance, and something that we need to watch out for. I just don't think it's going to happen. It's not going to be something that's dramatic. It's not going to be like overnight, one day, all of a sudden they're rounding up everybody's guns, or they're trying to institute or enforce registration. I just don't see that happening. I see it happening the way things usually happen, incrementally, boil the frog, little by little. So we do have to be vigilant, but I wouldn't worry too much about just all of our gun rights being taken away all of a sudden. So there's that. But anyway, we're getting short on time. I'm going to have to take a break, and so just hang tight, and we'll be right back.
No one knows what the future holds, whether an unexpected natural disaster or a catastrophe of a more personal nature. You never know when you're going to need to call upon your survival skills and supplies. In order to be fully prepared, we at Dan's Depot believe you need two things in order to get through these uncertain times without fear: proven gear and top-notch survival training. DansDepot.com is not just another storefront selling survival gear. Our staff has been studying, practicing, and teaching survival skills for over 4 decades. We use and abuse all the gear we sell, So, when we recommend survival products, you can be assured that it's the highest quality gear available at the best price. But having the best gear means nothing if you don't know how to use it. That's why we have on-site video instructions to help you choose survival products for any situation. Each week, we produce new training videos and articles that inform, challenge, and better prepare you in all areas of survival, first aid, and self-reliance. Come visit us at dansdepot.com and let our team of survival experts help you get prepared with the knowledge and equipment you need to face these uncertain times with confidence. That's DANSDEPOT.com.
Charlie McGrath of Wide Awake News here with an important message from Chris, Phil, Russ, Tyler, and the rest of the folks at BuyEmergencyFoods.com. Do not wait until it's too late to be prepared for disaster. The world's a crazy place. Ever-present threat of man-made political and economic crisis makes it important to be prepared. But when you factor in natural disasters, it goes from being important to being mandatory. 7.7 earthquake in Canada, 6.5 earthquake in Central America, and over 50 million Americans affected by Hurricane Sandy, all in the span of just a few days. Make Legacy Premium freeze-dried storable food part of your preparedness plan today. Legacy Premium tastes great, has a 25-year shelf life, and is the only certified non-GMO freeze-dried storable food in the business. I recommend the 360-serving package. That's 120 days worth of life-sustaining calories for about $1.25 a serving. Please call them at 888-543-7345. Again, 888-543-7345, or better yet, visit them online at BuyEmergencyFoods.com.
Survival is not about the end of the world. It's not about a hypothetical plane crash or the latest violent storm. Survival is about the satisfaction of knowing you can take care of yourself and your family in any situation, anytime, anywhere. CampingSurvival.com was started in 1956. No, not the .com part, the survival part. CampingSurvival.com has over 17,000 urban, wilderness, and preparedness items. Supreme customer service, very low shipping, and no games. We look around to make sure we have the lowest prices. And CampingSurvival.com is 100% USMC veteran-owned. Don't base your survival on the latest spring up on the internet company. Do business with an authority on survival. CampingSurvival.com. Confidence born on preparation.
Okay, and we're back here at Survival and Beyond, and I just want to remind you that you can still get 5% off all of your purchases at CampingSurvival.com by entering the coupon code SBRadio. That's S as in Survival, B as in Beyond, and the word radio, and that's all one word. Get your 5% off at CampingSurvival.com. Okay, well, now that we've covered the heavy topics, we can get to the fun part of the show, the part of the show where I get to explore and pass along some of my understandings of the nature of reality and how we can affect that reality and what we can do to alleviate the anxieties that come with being awake and being a prepper and being a survivalist. And, you know, one of our listeners, last week I responded to one of our listeners' messages, Eric, who asked what we can do to relieve those stresses and the anxieties and you know, and I expounded a little bit, maybe a little bit too much on if you let those feelings and you let that fear and that tension and that anxiety get to you, then after a while you'll probably want to go back to sleep. And I related my story about myself. I personally went back to sleep a couple of times because it just got too much. It just got too, I just got too rattled by it. And every morning I would wake up, and the first thing I think about is like, oh my God, the New World Order. Oh my God, the globalist agenda, and everything, and feel that electricity in my heart, and and so it's very tempting to want to just hide under the covers and go back to sleep and go back to your normal life and pretend that nothing ever happened and convince yourself that maybe you just overreacted. That's it. That's what it must have been. I must have just overreacted. I went in, I jumped in on the deep end, at the deep end, and try to get back on with your life. But you know what happens is eventually something will come across your field of vision, your field of consciousness, of awareness, and it will trigger something that you tried to forget, that you tried to unlearn, and it'll just wake you back up again. It'll get you motivated again to learn the truth and to not choose not to be asleep. And it's bound to happen unless you're really good at deluding yourself, and depending on the level of awareness that you had before you went back to sleep. But yeah, there's something's going to come along, and it's just gonna just eat away at you, where and it just exists in the back of your head, just keeping you can't ignore until you can't ignore it anymore. That will bring you back around again. But we can avoid all that because if you go to sleep, if you go back to sleep, you might stay back asleep, and that's not what we need. So there are a few other ways that I didn't talk about last week in terms of assuaging those feelings. And one thing that I'm surprised I didn't mention, some of the things I didn't mention because they went in a little too deep, and would require a little bit more explanation. And as it is, when I talk about this stuff, I've said it before, I'll say it again, I'm going completely stream of consciousness. This is nothing that's scripted or anything like that. And a lot of their musings and a lot of it is based on my experience as well. So in fact, the vast majority of what I talk about is based on my personal experience and the results that I've gotten. But the one thing I failed to mention last week, or at least I think I failed to mention it, I don't know. It's hard to recall everything I said in the show once it's all done. And anyway, the thing that you have to realize, getting back to the fear issue, or getting back to the anxiety issue, is be aware that your emotions, the way you experience your emotions is it's vibrational, without a doubt. It's you're being affected and you're interacting with the vibrations around you, and that's the root of the way you experience emotions. But your body experiences it by releasing peptides. These are hormones that cause a biochemical reaction in your body, and that's how that your body interprets your reaction to these vibrations. Now, you can use this to your advantage by realizing that just by the fact that you're aware of that, you can control it, and it doesn't happen right away. It does take some. It does take some practice. It does take a little bit of discipline and training and everything. But one technique that I use when I find myself in a headspace where I shouldn't be, or in a disharmonious or a fear/anger kind of space, is what I do is I just imagine the thought. You're in thought, you're visualizing these things, and when you're visualizing and you're projecting fear and anxiety, then that's what you're putting out. That's how you're affecting your particular wave of potential. And I should recap some of that I mentioned last week about the potentiality and waves and particles and all that other stuff, all that other cool groovy stuff. But yeah, your consciousness is affecting it, and when you put out that dense low vibration, that's basically what you it's what will reciprocate back to you. So you want to diffuse that. And the way I diffuse it, I've got a couple of different techniques that I use, and one is like if I'm wrapped up in this this false projection. Fear has been described as an acronym. It's false evidence appearing real, and that's what you're in when you're in a fear state. And so, in order to diffuse that, what I do is, whatever that visual I have in my head, whether I'm, going down some speculation, some negative speculation about something, reacting. This is the crux of it. You have to you have to learn not to be reactive. You have to learn to I don't want to say control it. It's like my articulation goes right out the window when I'm talking about this stuff. I'm like, dang, it's like I'm a lot more eloquent in my head, and then I try to actually explain it. But yeah, it's all about not reacting to things. Not reacting and then taking that stimulus, taking that, information, like if you heard about something going on with the government, taking away more of our rights or whatever, and that has an immediate, your body has an immediate reaction to that, your mind, your brain, you have a chemical reaction to that. And it's all reactive, and then the next thing you know, you're projecting, and you're projecting, further and further into the future, and the things that are going to happen. And you start imagining this dystopian world where the whole scenario, the whole doomer porn scenario, the post collapse and all that other stuff. And while you're imagining this, while you're projecting these images in your head, that's what you're putting out to the universe, and that's what you're saying. Hey, here, this is what I want. Because your brain doesn't know the difference between what you're seeing, what you consider to be your so-called reality, your surroundings, and what's going on, what's being manufactured in your own brain. And so, the reaction is the same. So it's very important to learn not to be reactive, to create a buffer. And again, this takes time, and if you have to meditate to reach a state where you can do this at will, on command. I've managed to get to the point where I can do it just at will. If I catch myself and and what I do with that image that I have in my head is I just imagine it dematerializing, like the transporter in Star Trek, And I just denounce its power and I basically destroy it. I basically, just wipe it out of existence. And so that kind of, that dissipates the energy. Another way you can imagine it is take that image and imagine it like a, I don't know, I don't want to say a spirit, but imagine it as a real thing leaving your body, whatever it is. If you want to imagine it as a balloon, oftentimes I imagine it as a jellyfish, a space jellyfish, whatever, ethereal, and I take that negative energy and I just, that's how sometimes I visualize it. And the important thing is that you have to let go of it. One of the hardest things to do, in my experience, has been letting go of anger and letting go of suspicion and fear, for lack of a better word, or trepidation about the future. And, and they say if you're depressed, then you're living in the past. And if you're anxious, you have anxiety, then you're living in the future. So you get to determine what that future is going to be. Do you want to generate and project images of, a terrible scenario to be frightened of, to be fearful of? Or do you want to project an image of a world where there is liberty, where there is peace, where there is freedom, where there is beauty, where your utopia, basically, whatever that is, right? And all that's important is what it is to you, because this is from your own perspective. We all live in our own microcosms, and this ties into what I was talking about last week with the Hugh Everett's many worlds theory. And this also ties in. I guess I should take this moment to recap the whole thing, because this is another thing, this is incredibly fundamental, and well, it's not really. I mean, it's very complicated. It's quantum science, but the thing that I can't get over is, we discovered, or quantum physicists, scientists discovered back in the 30s that reality is just a wave of potential with the double slit experiment, and that our consciousness interacts with the universe on a subatomic level, and it has an effect on the outcome, on the state that potentiality wave exists in, the point in space time. It collapses the wave into a particle, and we've known this ever since then. Ever since the 30s, we've known this, and I don't understand why this was not taught to every child, to every person on the planet, and again, I kind of do, suppression of knowledge and all that other stuff, but we've known this, and nobody has really. Well, I can't say that. I can't say that for sure, right? Because I don't know everybody who's involved in this branch of science. But we should have been figuring this stuff out a long time ago. Is basically what I'm saying. We should have been putting two and two together. It's like now, or over the last 10 or 20 years, a lot more people have been putting it together and figuring out the significance and what this really means. That our consciousness can interact with reality, with subatomic particles and whatnot, and therefore, if we have an influence on it, that our observation, just by observation alone, we collapse the wave function and it becomes a particle in a fixed space and in the space time. And then what happens to the rest of that potential? Whatever happens to all the rest of those potential realities that could occur. So anyway, I'm repeating what I said last week. I realize that, but I think it's important for you really need to understand this. You really need to wrap your head around it in order for all of the other steps, the further steps about creating your reality, affecting your reality, manifesting the things that you need and want. You really have to know this. Not just believe it. It's not a belief. This is scientific fact. Observation affects reality, and this is incontrovertible. And so you have all these other potentials that could happen. That's what started Hugh Everett onto his many worlds theory. And Hugh Everett was not. Let's say he wasn't revered in his time, because like many scientific breakthroughs or many scientific ideas that run counter to what is considered the established canon, those scientists are always ostracized. There's always rejection. And oftentimes, as in the case of Hugh Everett, their work isn't taken seriously until after they're gone, or much later in their lives. And such is the case with Hugh Everett. And now, quantum scientists are taking another look at the many worlds theory and actually seriously considering it. And there's no reason why that shouldn't happen. One of the things that I guess I don't know how this is gonna dovetail, but one of my favorite expressions is same planet, different worlds. And I think these different worlds exist not. They exist within your current realm of experience. And I started thinking about this when I noticed it was becoming increasingly more difficult for me to. I guess to tolerate people who are like just completely dead asleep, just don't know a single thing about what's going on in the world around them. and how frustrating it is for me to, have to start with somebody who, you literally have to start from square one. You have to start right from the beginning, and it's not people who are asleep that bother me. It's it's people who are they're antagonistic. You're trying to tell them things that are documented fact, that are out in plain sight, that are information that's available. It's not a theory. It's not speculation. It's not anything like that. But if they're gonna be antagonistic every step of the way, I can't waste my time with those people anymore. Now, if you're asleep or you're just waking up and you're actually interested in learning this stuff, then I'll spend all day with you, man. But if you're going to come at me with the attitude like you're going to prove me wrong or you're going to blow holes in my theories or whatever, then go somewhere else. I can't waste my time with that. And and that's an example of same planet, different worlds. We all live in our own microcosm, and occasionally our worlds intersect with another person's world. And their world is due to their level of consciousness and due to their ability to accept the truth and understand reality beyond what they've been programmed to. Their world will be completely different from yours. And when somebody is in this completely different existence, I mean, the worlds look the same. They look almost identical, but it's just it's from their point of view. Their point of view is very different, and therefore, what they perceive as their reality is very different from what yours is. And sometimes I find it amazing that when I talk to people, and there's a lot of stuff that I just assume that everybody knows. I assume that everybody knows that the Federal Reserve is a scam. I assume that everybody knows, certain things that are just, there's no reason for you not to know them because they're just right there in front of you. And it's always surprising when people just look at me blankly and, they just have no idea because all they know is what the media tells them. And that's the extent of their world. So, bear that in mind. When you talk to other people, and I try to be as patient as I can, but there are other times it's like, you know what, you're not even trying to listen to me, so I'm not even gonna I'm not gonna bother. But I'm all about it. If you're interested in learning and you want to wake up and you want to, if you have the capacity to take a look at your world from a different angle, then yeah, I'm more than happy to. That's what I'm here for. That's why I started several years ago when I first woke up, and why I wanted to get the word out. And I started a really bad website that never really quite got finished. And one thing led to another, and here I am. And that is a manifestation. And it's been a pretty interesting trip from that cheap-ass website when I didn't know what I was doing to where I am right now, and my level of awareness and my ability to pass it on to other people has been a journey. It's not a destination, but it is a manifestation. This is something that came from my desire and my passion and my imagination, and finally seeing it come to fruition and making it real. And I'm talking to you folks, and I'm talking to who knows how many other thousands of people that are out there that listen to my show on a weekly basis, loyal listeners and a lot of new listeners as well. I'm not going to go off about my listener base, but this is something that it didn't happen overnight, and that's another thing too. This touches upon another source of anxiety is when preppers finally, or when people finally do wake up and they start getting hip to the whole prepping thing, and getting, realizing that they got to start stocking up food, and they got to start, putting kits together, and they got to start, preparing, and that can be daunting, and it could be so daunting that that a lot of people just don't even start. because it just seems so insurmountable. And one way to get through this without being overwhelmed, is to change your point of view. Don't look at it as this enormous, mountain or this huge Herculean effort that you're going to have to put in to accomplish this. Break it down. It's very, very simple. It's a simple survival technique when you're in a survival situation, and the way you keep your wits about you is to start breaking down tasks. Breaking stuff up into small tasks to keep your mind occupied, and so that you're not, your head doesn't start spinning and you lose your cool and possibly your life because you're not aware of your surroundings, and you're succumbing to emotion and fear. So, boy, that was a mouthful. So yeah, and this also dovetails right into the topic that I'm going to cover in the right after the break, where we are going to have to take a break in just a few minutes. But and that's about living in the moment. But I want to backpedal a little bit and get back to what you see in your mind is what you create in the so-called real world. And this really, a lot of people have a hard time with this because it's hard for people to accept that their thoughts are real. They're real things. It's a real force. It's a real energy. Your thoughts, your consciousness. And they don't realize that all the tapes that they're playing in their head and all the fearful thoughts of disaster and failure and whatever will actually manifest if they keep giving it that energy, if they keep projecting that out into the universe. If you want to consciously think of it, if you want to consciously think about shifting into a different reality, and it's done in increments, shifting from one world to another. Apparently, so the theory goes that it's happening all the time without any kind of real direction. And what is amazing, an amazing concept to consider is that you can go through life allowing yourself to be just pushed along by the energy and by these changes and these shiftings and be adrift. And a lot of people are. A lot of people are just adrift, and things happen to them and they react to them. You see, this is what I'm getting at. And I don't know if that clicked or any light bulbs went off in anybody's heads, but that's really what the cycle is. It's really a cycle of just being affected by things and reacting to them. Or having forces played upon you and reacting to them. And instead of doing that, sorry about that. My Skype was on and somebody tried to call me. But instead of going, just being buffeted by the stream, and there's something to be said for that. I mean, there are times when it's quite an adventure and exciting. I mean, I've been there several times myself, just seeing where the wind blew me, and having just irreplaceable experiences or indescribable experiences, and so that's good. But you can't go through your entire life like that. You do have the ability to direct. And the thing that, as I was saying earlier, the thing that people have a hard time dealing with is buying that their thoughts, and their visuals, the visualization that they see in their head actually does something, and also secondly, the idea that you really have to get to a point where. Kind of like it's similar to the positive thinking thing I've mentioned in previous shows, that just think positive thoughts and that's going to, that's going to do something real. And it's really not, because most people, they take this positive thinking thing and it's just a veneer, and they try to cover all this massive negativity with this veneer of positive thinking. And then they just get frustrated and this doesn't work. And well, it does. And the same thing, and this kind of occurred to me one day. I like to take walks and hikes at least 3 or 4 miles a day every day, and that's where I get my best thinking done. And this thought just pelted me in the head like a snowball, like somebody threw a snowball at me, and I realized that I was trying to think of ways to explain this to people and ways to get it across. And what occurred to me was, do not think of, like, if you're trying to manifest and you're trying to change your reality or direct your reality, don't think of it as superimposing the image in your mind over the real world, okay? Because both of them are equally legitimate. It's equally legitimate to call both what you're visualizing in your head and what you're seeing with your eyes. They're both real. You're just supplanting what you don't. You're supplanting what you don't want with what you do want, and you just keep pushing that forward. You just keep until you keep getting closer and closer to it, and you'll realize that that the world around you is changing, and you're getting the things accomplished that you need to get accomplished, and you're living in the moment. And when I say living in the moment, that doesn't mean completely disregard the future or don't prepare for the future. I mean, that's what we do. We're preppers, and so be mindful of the future, but keep yourself centered in the present. And I'll expound on that a little bit more after this break. So just hang tight, and we'll be right back.
Survival is not about the end of the world. It's not about a hypothetical plane crash or the latest violent storm. Survival is about the satisfaction of knowing you can take care of yourself and your family in any situation, anytime, anywhere. CampingSurvival.com was started in 1956. No, not the .com part, the survival part. CampingSurvival.com has over 17,000 urban, wilderness, and preparedness items. Supreme customer service, very low shipping, and no games. We look around to make sure we have the lowest prices. And CampingSurvival.com is 100% USMC veteran-owned. Don't base your survival on the latest spring-up on the internet company. Do business with an authority on survival. CampingSurvival.com. Confidence born on preparation.
Charlie McGrath here with an important message from Chris, Phil, Russ, Tyler, and the folks at PrepareWise.com. Do not wait until it's too late to be prepared for a disaster. The world's a crazy place. We have the ever-present threat of man-made political and economic crisis, making it important to be prepared. But when you factor in natural disasters, it goes from important to mandatory. A 7.7 earthquake in Canada, a 6.5 earthquake in Central America, and over 50 million Americans affected by Hurricane Sandy. It's time to make Legacy Premium freeze-dried storable food part of your preparedness plan. Legacy Premium tastes great, has a 25-year shelf life, and is the only certified non-GMO freeze-dried storable food in the business. I really recommend the 360-serving package. That's 120 days worth of life-sustaining calories for about $1.25 per serving. Give the guys over at PrepareWise a call at 888-545-6265. Again, 888-545-6265, or better yet, visit them online at PrepareWise.com.
No one knows what the future holds, whether an unexpected natural disaster or a catastrophe of a more personal nature. You never know when you're going to need to call upon your survival skills and supplies. In order to be fully prepared, we at Dan's Depot believe you need two things in order to get through these uncertain times without fear: proven gear and top-notch survival training. DansDepot.com is not just another storefront selling survival gear. Our staff has been studying, practicing, and teaching survival skills for over 4 decades. We use and abuse all the gear we sell. So, when we recommend survival products, you can be assured that it's the highest quality gear available at the best price. But having the best gear means nothing if you don't know how to use it. That's why we have on-site video instructions to help you choose survival products for any situation. Each week, we produce new training videos and articles that inform, challenge, and better prepare you in all areas of survival, first aid, and self-reliance. Come visit us at dansdepot.com and let our team of survival experts help you get prepared with the knowledge and equipment you need to face these uncertain times with confidence. That's DANSDEPOT.com.
Okay, and we're back here at Survival and Beyond, and to continue, another thought that I had during the break was another way of dealing with anxiety is simply, and this is nothing metaphysical about this at all, but just simply step away from the information. Give yourself a break every now and then. You know, if you find that you're getting yourself tied up in you becoming a nervous wreck from your research and the things that you're uncovering and the things that you're discovering and the truth that's being exposed to you, and and you're awakening, if that's starting to get you twisted in knots, by all means, just take a break from it. I have to do it myself. I have to do it all the time because, I spend a lot more time than the average person. I would have to say that, a very large percentage of what I do involves research. And I spend at least half, if not more, of my time reading and watching videos and doing research and getting the information, getting the facts, getting the data. And that's my job, basically. I mean, I do that day in and day out. I don't go to work somewhere and work for 8 hours and not think about this stuff and then come home and do it. That's my 24/7 occupation, and so I definitely need to just have a day. Typically on a Saturday, weekends, I work on the weekends too, but, typically on a Saturday, I say, okay, today I'm not going to touch my computer. I'm not going to click any links. I'm not going to follow any, because I'm bombarded by information and news that people send me, and through email and through social media and whatnot. And I end up, getting sent. People send me links to stuff, to information that's important, and I'm usually all too eager to jump in. But after a while, you have to say, okay, I have to focus on my reality. I have to focus on what I want my reality to be. What my world, what kind of world am I going to build? And I've been doing this incredibly in earnest. I've been studying this stuff and consciously aware of this for most of my life. From my late teens into my 20s, I was very, very keenly interested in quantum physics and manifestation and the truth and esoteric things and what some would call occult information. And spiritual information, spiritual information, and spiritual studies. And so, but I never, it never really started to click until the last few years. And I think it kind of coincided with my general awakening to the oligarchy and the way the world really works, and it's only the next. It's logical that would go hand in hand. First you get awake to the world around you, and then you get awake to the greater universe around you, and it's just a natural progression. It's all the truth. This is all. The true world, the universe, the way that the powers that be try to suppress you from seeing, or try to suppress to keep away from you, to keep you from realizing, trying to keep you away from this realization that you have power, that you are able to create your reality and create your own world. So what kind of world are you going to live in? What kind of world do you want to inhabit? Do you want to inhabit a world of fear and anxiety, or do you want to inhabit a world of endless possibilities? And that's really what it is. It's everything that can be, must be. Everything that the potential has to express itself. Without getting into mathematics or scientific terms or theories or Hugh Everett aside, without getting into all of that, I mean, it just makes on just a logical level, it just makes logical sense that if everything can happen, if the universe is just a wave of potential, everything can happen, then everything must happen. Everything the universe has to find every possible expression of the potential. I guess, sorry. Did I mention I find it awkward to or unwieldy to express these concepts? Yes, I think I did. So, anyway, leaving that aside, I think I explained that well enough. And so if it can happen, and people ask, one of the questions that I had was when I first heard about the many worlds theory is that, well, why am I experiencing this reality? Why am I on this thread? Why am I not experiencing some other reality? And each of those realities, there is a version of you, ostensibly, that is experiencing that existence. And one of the possible answers, although it doesn't quite completely jive with me yet, is that we chose which existence that we were going to live in. Now, where it gets sticky is, does this negate free will? On a spiritual level, there's the belief that you decided, that you wanted to experience this life. I don't know if it's quite that literal. I think that as a part of the universe, you decide that you wanted to experience life on the physical three-dimensional plane of existence. I don't think that we really saw our entire how it all plays out before we decided to come here, because that would negate free will, and that would be that just doesn't work. Because we have free will, and I don't believe that anything is planned or destined or fated or anything like that. I firmly believe that I create my own path, my own destiny, and I've proven it to myself. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about in terms of like instant the instant change of worlds, the stepping from one world to another. There have been a few times in my life when that was very palpable, when I definitely know that I was transitioning from one reality into another. And I'm more comfortable with the word reality, so I'm going to dispense with the whole worlds thing, except for the fact that our world is our microcosm, and what it consists of is due to our perception, due to our perspective, how the way that we see it, the way that we see reality is the way that it exists. And once that changes in your mind, once that something gets adjusted, then your reality adjusts to accommodate it. I mean, this is just the truth. I don't know any better way to explain it, or to qualify it, or to legitimize it. I don't think it requires legitimization. This is very mundane. This is a very mundane concept, actually. That when you change your point of view, when you change the way you look at the world, then your world changes. Or what was it that Wayne Dyer said? When you change the way you look at things, the things that you look at change. And this is just common sense. But it goes deeper than just that. It goes deeper than a matter of perception. It goes or perspective. It it really has an effect on your world, on your reality, on your experience of it. So, there I go again, off on a tangent, and not really sure where I was going with it. So anyway, I think I've gone enough about alleviating stress. I'm sure once the show is all done and edited and wrapped up and everything, I'm going to go, I forgot to mention this. And so, if I do, I might pop back into it. But I hope that you could make heads or tails of it. Oftentimes that's another thing that I think of after I've done each and every one of my shows. I always just wonder if anything that I say about this makes any sense whatsoever, and apparently it does. I mean, I've gotten responses from a lot of people who are really digging it. So, but sometimes I just feel like I'm babbling and I'm just meandering and never really completely. I'm never fully satisfied, but you do what you can. And so, there's a few of you could take those tips as far as alleviating stress. Learn to be non-reactive, because that's basically that will go a long way in allowing you to control your emotions, or I should say, control the way that your body interprets your emotions, the way your body experiences or expresses your emotions. If you can quell that burst of adrenaline that happens when you start getting uptight and worried about things and anxiety, that'll go a long way to keep you on an even keel. Because if you go spinning off, and who knows what can happen. But another important thing that will help is learning to live in the moment. And like I alluded to before the show, it doesn't mean that you disregard the future. You should certainly disregard the past, because the past is done. There's nothing you can do about that. And this is another opportunity, if you're wrapped up in regret or remorse or anything like that. Again, it's gonna put you back on that low vibration, and it's going to help you. That'll open the door for fear, for depression, and everything. The past is done. If you find yourself thinking disproportionately about things that you just can't change, you can use that same exercise again of release, of either seeing that image disintegrate or releasing it like a balloon or a jellyfish or whatever you want to visualize. As long as you visualize it leaving your body, I usually see it leaving from my back and just disappearing behind me. I figuratively leave those thoughts behind. And you transform those thoughts, and that's the transformative part of it. Is what's really the powerful thing. Is like you take it and you just turn it around, and you just do that in your consciousness. You do that in your visualization, and it works really well for me. It took me a while, because I had trouble. If I was all worked up and angry about something, I had a really hard time letting that go. And it seemed like I would try to release the anger and visualize it leaving me, but there would be these tendrils that would still be hanging on, clinging to me, and I really had to focus my conscious effort to see that just sever and separate from my body. But those two techniques really help out, and living in the moment, being more mindful, and this is something that I'm still working on. This is being in a state of conscious mindfulness, because I'm really undisciplined, or I'm kind of sloppy. I'm kind of my thinking is not organized. It's more abstract. And I tend to go from one thing to another in terms like philosophical stuff, and one thought or an idea leads to another, and everything. And the next thing you know, I'm off a million miles away, and I am not in the present. I am not paying attention to what I'm doing or where I am, and it's really easy for me to fall into that. I've done that since I was a child. When I was in the great public school system, elementary school, I had a teacher who would complain because I daydream too much, and it's just my imagination, and it's like an out-of-body experience. I literally, my consciousness goes somewhere else. I don't know if it's my soul actually separating from my body and drifting out in the ether, but my consciousness is a million miles away. And then I'll find myself, sometimes it's kind of cool. Like when I go on hikes or when I go on walks, I really dig it when I just forget where I am, where I'm so, in motion and in that moment that, I'm really unaware of my surroundings, and I don't mean, I wouldn't do this if I was in the wilderness or in a survival situation, but on my familiar trails, that I hike daily and walk daily and familiar roads and everything, I can allow myself to drift away. And then when I come back, and I realize that I've been gone, it's a great experience, but that didn't come overnight. I had to learn to do that. I had to learn to differentiate between, my thoughts and the vibration and the energy that went with those thoughts. And if I was having a thought and holding it in my consciousness for a disproportionately long amount of time, I would let it go. But not only that, see, this here is the trick. For the longest time, I thought that letting it go, and I think this is why I had the problem releasing fear and anger, because I was trying to let it go, but I wasn't replacing it with something else. And nature abhors a vacuum. So when you remove this image from your consciousness, something else has to take its place. And if you're just drifting, if you're just letting the stream carry you wherever it's going to take you, then, something else interacts with you and something else that's beyond your control. But if you consciously replace it with an image of what your reality, what you want your reality to be, then that is what it's going to become. That is the direction that you're going to take. That is your self-direction, your self-determination. And I'm telling you, again, from personal experience, I've proven it to myself on numerous occasions. Sometimes, like I said, this stuff is, I've been doing this stuff for most of my life in various degrees or increments, and like I said earlier, when I was younger, I have a bunch of situations or a bunch of experiences where I consciously and deliberately manifested things, but I didn't. It didn't really click that that's what I was doing. It didn't really register, I think, that I was controlling my reality. I knew that, I manifest. Usually it was in a crisis moment. Usually it was something that I needed right away. Some of you heard me tell the story about the transmission fluid. That was an example where I was completely in the moment. I was not in the future. I was trying not to be in the future. And I was rejecting images of disaster and, hypothermia or whatever would have happened if I hadn't found that transmission fluid. I was completely in the moment when I was manifesting. I was deliberately, this is what they call intent. That's the key element. You have to have intent, and I was very much in the zone of intent when I was in that emergency situation. And I'm sure that a lot of you who are listening have similar experiences where you found yourself in a moment of crisis or a moment of emergency, and you just created exactly what you needed at the exact time that you needed it. Other times it involved money. When I moved to Flagstaff, man, that's a rough town to survive in financially. It's pay scale's low, and the cost of living is really high, and because most of their income comes from tourism, everything's expensive. And it's rough. It's rough. A lot of people who move to Flagstaff, they don't make it. They don't last very long. And that I was no exception. You know, when I first got there, it was brutal, and but I got by. I survived. You know, and I manifested things that I needed. I manifested a job when I needed it, and I manifested, you know, I was dirt broke most of the time, you know, and there were days when I didn't know how I was going to eat that day. And I remember one time distinctly, I just decided to manifest $5, and I was on my way to work. I was riding my bike. I rode my bike everywhere back then. And I'm riding my bike to work, and sure enough, before I got to work, I found a $5 bill on the ground, right on my way, you know, and that was something that was just immediate in the moment. Now, it doesn't always happen like that. It doesn't always appear right away, because this is a dense, slow vibration, and you know, things take time. It happens on God's time. It doesn't happen on your time, But there are other moments when you are completely in that moment, in that singularity, you know, and every single philosophy in history, every religion, every mystery school has, every single one of them, what they all have in common is they all teach to live in the moment, to live in the now. You know, and when you're living in the moment, because this is where the energy is, this is where the magic happens, this is where you create the miracles, is when you're completely in the moment. And I'm just as guilty as everybody else. You know, I find myself drifting into the future, and I have to catch myself and stop myself from doing that. Sometimes I find myself getting wrapped up in the past, like, you know, just crappy stuff that happened. Or setbacks or whatever, and when I find myself thinking that way, you know, I have to release it and let it go. Don't let it rent space in your head. Don't let anybody rent space in your head, and I do that too sometimes, you know. So it's really something that you have to maintain all the time. But the more you do it, the easier it gets, and the less you have to think about it. But there are other things that I could still be more in the moment. One of the things that frustrates me, and this is how I know when I'm not in the moment, is because I misplace stuff all the time. I'll have something in my hand, and 5 minutes later, I have no idea where it is. I cannot find it. I cannot remember what I did with it, because I wasn't in the moment. I wasn't thinking about what I was doing, you know. Now, that's fine when that happens. You're just around in the house. But if you're in a survival situation and you're, say, out in the wilderness and you're out in the elements, or there's a disaster, you cannot afford not to be in the moment and be aware of your surroundings, you know. And so that's something that I lapse into when I get into my comfort zone. And, you know, and it's safe to do it when you're in the safety of your home. It's safe to just let your mind, you know, wander. And, I don't think I'll ever be, like, intently focused on the moment every single second, you know, of my life. That's not the goal. That's not, you know, what you're, because then you stop living. Then you don't have a life, because you're just too occupied with, existing and appreciating the moment. But there are some things that you can do. One such thing, and I kind of like the idea of it. I haven't tried it yet, but I think it's a cool idea. There's an app for Android phones and probably for iPhone as well, and it's called a mindfulness bell. And what it does is it rings at random moments throughout the day. And when it rings, that's a trigger for you to just focus on where you are and what you're doing, and especially on what you're thinking. I mean, that's key. You create an entire universe. Your thoughts are an entirely unique reality, and that reality is what manifests in what you see as the external world. So, yeah, and getting back to, you know, taking the image that you want to see in the future, don't see it as trying to superimpose it over the real world, or trying to to supplant what, you know. If you start thinking about, and here's a mindfulness exercise. and this is something that I do, if you start thinking about where you are and you look at your surroundings and just realize that you're seeing what you're seeing, or what you are seeing is not necessarily what really is. And I try to think of I try to think of the objects around me, like if I'm in a room and I try to think of the walls or the furniture or whatever. I try to imagine it on a subatomic level, and to see the vast amounts of space between the nucleus and the electron, and the just realize that it is a vibration and there's more empty space there, and yet the smallest particle in the universe contains such a vast, unimaginable amount of power. And I remind myself on a daily basis, sometimes several times a day, that since I am made of that energy, then I am, and everything else around me is made of that energy, everything around you is made of atoms, then everything is connected. And it will start to change the way you think. It'll start to change your outlook on with other people. When you start to open yourself to receive this connection and to acknowledge it and receive the energy that is sent to you through this grid, through this interconnection of reality between you and other people and the world around you, it just builds, and it gets to a point where it becomes a joy. And you take that joy, take that energy, and create with it, and create your ideal world, or start taking steps to it. For God's sake, don't do nothing. Do something, even if it's small, even if it's a very minor step. Do something. Something is better than nothing. But we've got to take a break now, and when we come back, we're going to be talking to Dan Johnson. He's returning to the show. Dan is the founder of PANDA, that's People Against the National Defense Authorization Act, and he's a force to be reckoned with. He started PANDA, and they've got over 50, I think. Well, you'll hear, he talks about it in the interview, all of the chapters. They've made some, this is an effective organization. They were instrumental in the Michigan nullifying, or at least starting legislation to nullify NDAA, and now they're gonna do it in Ohio. So he's gonna be on the show, and he's gonna be telling us all about his accomplishments and the victories that PANDA has had, and more information about National Defense Authorization Act and what you can do if you're interested in resisting this tyranny, as you should be. So we'll be right back. Just hang tight.
Charlie McGrath of Wide Awake News here with an important message from Chris, Phil, Russ, Tyler, and the rest of the folks at BuyEmergencyFoods.com. Do not wait until it's too late to be prepared for disaster. The world's a crazy place. Ever-present threat of man-made political and economic crisis makes it important to be prepared. But when you factor in natural disasters, it goes from being important to being mandatory. 7.7 earthquake in Canada, 6.5 earthquake in Central America, and over 50 million Americans affected by Hurricane Sandy, all in the span of just a few days. Make Legacy Premium freeze-dried storable food part of your preparedness plan today. Legacy Premium tastes great, has a 25-year shelf life, and is the only certified non-GMO freeze-dried storable food in the business. I recommend the 360-serving package. That's 120 days worth of life-sustaining calories for about $1.25 a serving. Please call them at 888-543-7345. Again, 888-543-7345, or better yet, visit them online at BuyEmergencyFoods.com.
Survival is not about the end of the world. It's not about a hypothetical plane crash or the latest violent storm. Survival is about the satisfaction of knowing you can take care of yourself and your family in any situation, anytime, anywhere. CampingSurvival.com was started in 1956. No, not the .com part, the survival part. CampingSurvival.com has over 17,000 urban, wilderness, and preparedness items. Supreme customer service, very low shipping, and no games. We look around to make sure we have the lowest prices, and CampingSurvival.com is 100% USMC veteran-owned. Don't base your survival on the latest spring-up on the internet company. Do business with an authority on survival. CampingSurvival.com. Confidence born on preparation.
Hey everybody, we're back here at Survival and Beyond, and I just want to take a quick second to remind you once again that you can still get 5% off all of your purchases at CampingSurvival.com by entering the coupon code SBRadio. That's S as in survival, B as in beyond, and the word radio. And now our guest this week on the show is a returning guest, actually. He's been on the show a couple of times. He's the founder of PANDA, which is People Against National Defense Authorization Act, and he's got some new information for us. And for those of you who aren't familiar with PANDA, we're going to talk a little bit about what PANDA is, what it does, how it's grown, and what a great force for liberty it's become. So without any further delay, let me introduce and welcome to the show Dan Johnson. How you doing, Dan?
I'm doing great, Ed. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, it's always a pleasure. I'm really behind what you're doing and all the great work that you're actually accomplishing things. You were instrumental in Michigan in getting the state legislature to nullify the NDAA there, and you're also working in Ohio. And just tell our listeners a little bit about what PANDA is and what it's all about and what you guys are doing.
Yeah, sure. PANDA, as you mentioned, stands for People Against the National Defense Authorization Act, or NDAA. And we cut off the last A because PANDA just sounds really weird. So you spell it like a little fuzzy bear. And we started back in late January of this past year. And with a rousing defeat at the hands of Bowling Green City Council, we got about 25 people to attend, stopping the NDAA there. We moved on, and that was kind of the catalyst for sending us nationwide. Since then, we've taken off. We've grown in a pretty nice liberty network all throughout the entire nation, actually. We've got almost 40 states and over 90 chapters across the nation. And we've connected with 10th Amendment Center, Bill of Rights Defense Committee, We Are 1776, a lot of other groups that are doing a great job fighting the NDAA, and we're really ready to push forward again in 2013. We're only a year old, and this is one of the fastest growing liberty movements in the nation.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, you kind of took off like a shot. I remember when I first met you, you already had like 42 chapters, and how many chapters do you have now?
90 plus, somewhere around the 93 range.
That's incredible, and it's a testament to your hard work and getting involved in this. And what was the catalyst that made you decide to do something about NDAA and some of the other things? Over the course of time, you've become aware of a lot of other things as well. And so what is your driving force, and what was it that inspired you to pick up and do this? Because a lot of people would just sit around and complain about it.
Well, I had, first of all, great parents who kept me out of public school and kept me homeschooled. Mm-hmm. And so I avoided the government indoctrination centers, if you will, that public schools have become. Right. And I was also forced to read. And since we didn't have a video game console for a while, and we didn't have pretty much anything, reading was my only entertainment. So I would go to the library, and I would take out stacks of 10, 20, 30 books. And I eventually got into reading on World War II. And so I read about the rise of the Third Reich and the rise and fall of Imperial Japan and the fall of the Third Reich and Stalin and even the Winter War between Finland and Russia. And I looked through all these books and had a very good knowledge of World War II. But I thought, America, the great, the wonderful, the home of the land of the free and home of the brave. This is a great, great country to be in. And I thought all that until it would have been right about November of 2011. I was procrastinating homework and avoiding it as much as I could when I stumbled across a video that said 61 senators betrayed you today. And I looked at the video going, wait, what? So I decided to watch it. Physically, it blew me back in my chair. It was like a shockwave coming out of the middle of nowhere, because they tied the NDAA directly to, and I knew what they were, they directly to the 1933 enabling acts that Hitler passed in Germany. And I almost dropped to the floor physically after watching that video. Like, I was brought up to believe that, America is the land of the free and home of the brave, and I didn't really think there was anything wrong with the country. I knew there was some things that it had issues with, but I didn't really know how far we'd slid into tyranny until the NDAA came around. And I decided to do some research, and that was really my wake-up point. It was social media that brought me to that video, and the video was on YouTube. So it was the internet, it was YouTube, it was social media that really started my awakening, as we like to call it in the movement.
Yeah, absolutely. And as much as people discredit information that is obtained on the internet, it's your only chance of getting the truth anymore, because the media is completely wrapped up and controlled, and this is a great thing. And you're a little younger than I am, and so this is something that is going to be the driving force behind whether people wake up or not. So, I'm always gratified to hear stories when you say that, YouTube was your education and Facebook, brought you to this information and how the social media works, as much as we like to malign it. And I have my fair share of that. There's a great deal of the internet, that I don't like. But one of the great things is that, and it also gives us a voice. Like right now, we're exercising that voice here on this show. I'm able to broadcast to thousands and thousands of people. And this is really the greatest tool that we have at our disposal. But what I wanted to ask you about and have you tell our listeners about is what you're up to right now with Operation Homeland Liberty.
Yeah, I'm sure you're familiar with the Department of Homeland Security.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, it's a great...
They're a great agency, aren't they? They run the TSA, which sticks their hands in your pants and calls that constitutional. They are installing cameras and taking over local police departments, and they're following right along the lines of the SS in Hitler's Germany.
Sure.
And the KGB, or the secret police, NKVD, in Russia. And in response to the Department of Homeland Security, which is all for the NDAA, in fact, the reason that the NDAA was passed is to ensure our national security and the security of our homeland, according to the people who are for it, we launched Operation Homeland Liberty. And Operation Homeland Liberty is starting here in Wood County, Ohio. And Wood County, Ohio, a little bit of a background. Ohio is, as Jon Stewart would call it, swing state hell. You almost need a doctor after seeing all the political ads here. It was insane. There was at least 2 political ads, and I don't watch much TV. In fact, I don't watch almost any TV at all. But they were even on the internet. They were on videos. They were specifically targeting people in Ohio because we're such a purple state. Well, Wood County, Ohio, has decided the presidential election for the past, I want to say, 30 years. And Wood County is incidentally where PANDA was born out of. It's Bowling Green, Ohio. It's located in Wood County, Ohio. And so we're starting Operation Homeland Liberty by, of course, returning home. And so on the 15th of this month, that'd be January 15th, 2013, we'll be going down and we'll be presenting on the NDAA. They've given us 30 minutes to present on the NDAA to the Wood County commissioners out here in Ohio. There's a event page and a number for people to call if they're, say, out in California or out in Colorado and can't make it over to Ohio for the event. There's a number they can call and politely insist that these commissioners take up our NDAA resolution. And we highly encourage everyone to do that. That's right on our website, pandaunite.org. That's pandaunite.org. It'll be front page for the next year, Operation Homeland Liberty. And we're trying to get it stopped. The NDAA stopped in Wood County first, and then we're expanding to all 50 states by the end of the year. Now, Virginia has already more or less stopped the NDAA. Something we want to do in Virginia is to condemn the governor, because the governor said, even though I signed it, I'm still going to allow, and I quote, the government to detain enemy combatants in Virginia, end quote. So he's like, I signed it, but I'm going to ignore it anyway.
Sure. I'm going to just interpret it any way I want to. My signature and whatever is meaningless. That's what we're finding in all levels of government right now, is that all of the infrastructure and the formats that we have in place in order to deter and eliminate the possibility of tyranny it's just getting completely ignored.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're trying to push something in the legislature that, number one, condemns the governor, because that's the governor not following the rule of law. And number two, strengthens up the bill a little bit that they passed. But other than that, the other 49 states have not passed anything substantive against the NDAA and signed it into law. And our goal is to get the entire United States. We've had it on our website, and we're serious about it. We want to get the entire United States stopping the NDAA state by state by December 31st, 2013. We set that goal a little less than a year ago. We're going to keep it. And we have had some serious success so far. Just in the start, we have, like you mentioned, Michigan. That went all the way through, and we scared them so bad with all the phone calls coming in from all across the country that they told us, okay, we'll put it on the first item on the agenda. We swear. 2013, as soon as we get into session, it'll be the first item on the agenda. So in Michigan, we have the bill being the first item on the agenda that already has passed unanimously through the House and unanimously through Senate committee last year. In Nevada, we have BDR 728 by our great guy out there, Chris Corbett, and State Senator Don Gustafson will be introducing that to stop the NDAA in Nevada. In Texas, the 10th Amendment Center is doing some great work down there with a bill to not only stop the NDAA, but another bill to stop the TSA. In Oklahoma, we have a possibility of getting a bill introduced. In Ohio, in Wisconsin, in Pennsylvania, we're working on legislation. And now in a couple other states, we are working on more legislation. So right now, we're looking at about 1/5 of the states introducing legislation at the beginning of their sessions.
Right.
And moving on from there. So whatever it takes, this is Operation Homeland Liberty. We don't have the time to wait any longer, because Hedges v. Obama is going to the Supreme Court. I've said it before. I'll say it again. It's going to the Supreme Court unless the plaintiffs give up. It's going to the Supreme Court. When it goes to the Supreme Court's not going to declare NDAA unconstitutional. Their record on civil liberties is 0, if not negative something.
Right.
If it gets to the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court decides to rule on it, they will declare it constitutional.
Oh, of course.
Then what county sheriff, what county commissioner is going to say, well, I want to do something against that. Never mind, it's constitutional. All of them, just about. Yeah. Most of them are going to say, well, the Supreme Court said it's constitutional. We can't do anything about that. And it will make it much, much harder to fight against tyranny throughout the states. So we have a deadline. And since most state legislatures are biannual, they will not convene till 2015. Since they won't convene till 2015, this is the year. We're going to let all our cannons loose this year. We don't have any time to waste dilly-dallying around and participating in slacktivism and online petitions and liking pictures on Facebook, and we don't have time for that anymore. We're running out of time fast. The window of a peaceful resolution to the issues we're having in our country is closing fast. So 2013, Operation Homeland Liberty. We will stop the NDAA in all 50 states. I almost said 57. In all 50 states, we will stop the NDAA by the end of this year. Because if we don't, we might not get another chance to.
Right. Yeah, and it's funny, but it's also, it's not funny at all that you mentioned slacktivism. I've been kind of ranting on my show a little bit about the movements and the groups and going and holding signs and passing out petitions, and getting signatures on petitions and everything isn't going to change a thing. You really, it comes down to, first and foremost, it comes down to the most, the effective weapon that we have, or not a weapon, I guess that's probably a misnomer, but the most effective tool, I should say, or the most effective result that we should be aspiring towards is to get people in their consciousness, snap them into reality and wake them up and have that epiphany, encourage that or promote that epiphany in people by spreading information, and also talking about just basically undoing all the bad programming and conditioning that we have. And secondly, focus your attentions on where you can make a difference instead of, it makes you feel good to go to a rally or go to a demonstration and you vent all of your frustrations and your anger and your concerns and everything. But then the next morning, the next day, it's just the same as it would have been had you not done that. So I really applaud what you're doing, and you're actually making a difference. You're not just sitting around complaining about it and getting people to like your thing on Facebook. So, my hat is off to you.
And that it's funny that you mentioned that you're talking about even more the slacktivism and the one time going to the protest. Mm-hmm. You have to think of the American people's anger. See, there's a misery index, if you will, that people have to hit a certain level on their misery index to get involved. I did. Mm-hmm. My misery index was going, oh crap, we're turning into Nazi Germany. Yeah. That was my misery index, because I'm not going to bring a child into the world where Nazi Germany's there. Right. I'm not going to subject them to that. So that was my pain index, went through the roof when it hit, oh wow, we're going to turn to Nazi Germany. This can't happen. For other people, their pain index might go through the roof when they see the $300 less of a paycheck because of something going on in the economy. But all the politicians have to do is they imagine the American people's anger as a kettle. And as the kettle steams and boils, and eventually it starts screaming. And the American people start screaming. So what the politicians do is they go, and they lift the lid of the kettle just a little bit to let the steam out, and they close it back up. Mm-hmm. And then you have another generation of people come in, and they pour cold water into the kettle. And you kill the screaming, you kill the steam. And that's a lot of what online petitions do. That's a lot of what protests do. I mean, there was a 2 million man march on D.C. At lowest estimates, 1.5 million people showed up in D.C. in 2007 or 2008. How much has changed? Right. Oh, wait. Nothing. So the difference between what we're doing and all of this slacktivism, even though protesting, marching in the streets is not seen as slacktivism, it hasn't produced any meaningful effect. We're going straight to the government officials. We're going straight to the state representatives saying, uphold your oath. This is my country. This is your country. You didn't take an oath to the Department of Homeland Security. You took an oath to the Constitution of the United States of America. Mm-hmm. You took an oath not to protect me. You took an oath to protect my rights. I can protect myself. That's why I'm here. That's why I can stay armed. That's why I have the tools to protect myself. Your job is to protect my rights because you have the keys to my liberty.
Tell it.
So we're going into state representatives and we're going into local representatives and local law enforcement, and we're saying, uphold your oath. We're sick and tired of this. This is it. We don't have much time left as a country. We don't have much time left as a people. And you're taking away our liberty and handing it to the tyrants who took it away in every other country around the world. This is not new. This is a country cycle. Countries go through this around the world. Argentina went through it. Russia went through it. Korea went through it. It's happening in America. And this is the year we have to get up and not just go protest in the streets, not just send something off to your friend and educate them about it. America's like a guy dying on the sidewalk with a bullet hole in his chest.
Yeah.
If you call the surgeon, he'll die before the surgeon gets there. So you have to take the bullet out first. You have to put some pressure. You have to put some pressure on the wound first. Have the EMTs put pressure on the wound first, and then you can call the surgeon and take the bullet out later. So you need to put pressure on the wound by having the state stand up with legislation, having the local counties and the sheriffs and the National Guard of the states stand up with legislation and say, no, we will not allow this to happen in our state. We will not allow this tyranny to come down where we are. And that's what we're doing with Operation Homeland Liberty.
I think it's also important to point out that just because your state legislators are part of the political process in your state, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're awake to what's going on. And one of the things that I think it boils down to is normalcy bias. The belief that because something has never happened yet means that it will never happen at all. And that doesn't. Your state politicians are just as susceptible to all the programming and conditioning that the rest of the sheeple are. So have you found that when you approach, like say in Michigan, when you approach a state legislature there, did you have to do a lot of convincing? I mean, did you come out and say this is turning into Nazi Germany and were they hip to it, or did you really have to point this out to them?
You have to educate them. The National Sheriff's Association, which is meeting this month and discussing our NDAA resolution in committee this month. The National Sheriff's Association didn't know about the NDAA, yet it takes away most of their authority.
Right.
So, yeah, we have to, the best example is probably Nevada. Our state coordinator in Nevada had never talked to his state legislators in his life. He'd voted. He'd never donated to a campaign that I know of for state legislature. He'd never done anything like that. He cold called his state legislators in Nevada. He visited their office without an appointment. He did everything he could to get through to them. And eventually he did, and none of these people had ever heard of it. None.
Yeah, that's amazing. But really it's not, because your state politicians they're humans too, and they're getting fed the same disinformation and garbage and false data and false media that we all are. So it's really shouldn't come as some surprise that a lot of these folks are just oblivious to what the NDAA actually means in regards to their level of government, and as well as the people at large. But
yeah, you're absolutely right. And it's so easy to educate the people we're targeting now, the state representatives, as far as calling them. It's so easy to get to your state representatives. They care more about their constituents than your federal representative does, and they have the power to change things.
Yeah.
And we're targeting the wrong people if we're targeting the average person for right now. While we're getting the pressure on them, we need to target the state, and that's what Operation Homeland Liberty is designed to do.
Awesome. Well, we're just about at the end of our time here, and I'm really, really glad that you came on the show. Your level of passion is invigorating, to say the least, and I'm glad to have all of our listeners hear about the good work that you've been doing. And how can people get active with PANDA?
You can go to pandaunite.org and click the Join Us tab on there. You can also follow us on Twitter @PandaUnite, Facebook.com/PandaUnite, and pandaunite.tumblr.com even.
All right.
This is KPRN-DB, broadcasting worldwide from southeast Oklahoma, USA, to parts unknown.
Hey preppers, James Smith here. I've got a new advertiser to tell you about. It is ultimatepreppers.net. There's a couple brothers out of the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area that have this website. It's chock full of everything you need and at a decent price. Let me tell you, they've got a Mayday fanny pack kit for less than $30, a Guide 10 Plus Adventure kit for solar power, 5-man tent for $89, tomahawks, GPS, go bags, so much more. Take a look at it. Freeze-dried food, supplies, you wouldn't believe it. Now they also sell guns online, and they also have military surplus items. Now, new items are being added daily. If you order more than $100, items are shipped free. Now, they also do take PayPal, so take a look at it. It's ultimatepreppers.net. That's ultimatepreppers, that's plural, .net.
Are you sick and tired of having your First Amendment harassed or censored on Facebook? Use no more, as we now have a new alternative to Facebook. It's called Awareness Act. Awareness Act is a social network designed for patriots, to be used by patriots, and is ran by patriots. Stand up and help in the fight to protect your constitutional rights. Patriots can create pages, blogs, videos, documents, articles, and so much more. We even have a unique news feed system that allows you to share, read, or connect with any patriot on Awareness Act. We are a dedicated tool for patriots to use against the tyranny our Constitution is facing. So if you're tired of having your rights infringed upon, come check us out at www.awarenessact.com. Again, that is www.awarenessact.com, the social network for patriots, not potatoes.
Whether you take me for the fool, I know that I can be. Whether you see me eye to eye.
Don't get caught with your pantry down. Try the most delicious Just Add Water storable food from Go Foods. No GMOs, no preservatives, no trans fats, no hydrogenated oils, and a 25-year shelf life. Enjoy it today and save money. Share it with others and earn money. Store it for the future and invest your money. You can't find better food for less anywhere. Made in the USA and guaranteed 100%. Plus, try it for free and decide for yourself at www.lovegofoods.com. To try it for free, go to www.lovegofoods.com. That's www.lovegofoods.com.
The truth is out there. Knowledge is power. This is the Prepper Podcast Radio Network.